Hi, everybody. It's Jay, and I am back in the booth for another live reading sneak peek video preview for this week's new release here on Say with Jay. It is also a special Valentine's Day edition of our sneak peek video preview. I mean, well, special in the sense that I just acknowledged that it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I will also begrudgingly admit to the vicious rumor that it is a certain narrator's birthday today. But moving along, this week's new release here on Say with Jay is Just a Cowboy's Enemy. It is book 3 in Jessie Gussman's new series, The Flyboys of Sweet Briar Ranch, Western Romance series. And we've got more about the book and, as I said, a live reading in just a minute. But as has become our tradition with this series and ones earlier, Jessie has included a dish in the story, and I'm going to make it for you folks here today in yet another segment of Cooking with Jay. Now, the one today kind of bears a little explanation. All right, as I may have mentioned here before, Jessie has asked me previously to send in lists of dishes that I like to make or that might be good to share and so forth. And she picks from that list and includes it within the framework of her story. And those come from several places. Lots of them that I've collected from the internet, some family recipes or from physical cookbooks that I have. My daughter-in-law has shared some of her family recipes before. But a fair number of these come from TikTok. Now, if you're not familiar with TikTok, it is sort of, I guess, the new kid on the block in terms of social media, in which people can post short videos for whatever. They're just little tidbits of video, certainly not as long as most YouTube videos are, like this one. And yes, I guess they're the teenagers doing their crazy dances and whatever they do. But my TikTok feed is mostly filled with stand-up comics, people reading dad jokes. Yes, that is where I get lots of them. And for the most part, cooking content. And for whatever reason, this guy. Anyway, I digress. One of the TikTok creators that I follow is a guy named Barry Cook, who has a channel called Sandwiches of History. It's a great channel, by the way. If you're on TikTok or are interested, it's worthy of a follow. But Barry, on a near daily basis, makes sandwiches out of old cookbooks, thus the name Sandwiches of History. And I mean some old cookbooks sometimes, like early 1900s and before. And they're usually very interesting. He made one, though, that was kind of unique that a reader had sent in. I'm sorry, that a viewer had sent in. And it was a sandwich that his 96-year-old grandmother makes on a regular basis. And he called it Jaden's grandmother's sandwich. Now, I have to stop and give Jessie some amazing writing credit here. She comes up with an entirely new backstory for the sandwich, and I will not spoil it here. You're going to have to read or watch or listen to hear that backstory, but it is just wonderful. Anyway, this is how you make Jaden's grandmother's sandwich. Okay, let's go over our ingredients first. It's a sandwich, so the ingredient list is quite short. You'll need 2 pieces of bread, some peanut butter, honey, red pepper flakes, bacon bits, and 1 egg. The first thing you're going to want to do is to scramble your egg. I just put a little pat of butter, add some salt and pepper. I don't think it really needs to be dressed up any. You just want basic plain old scrambled egg. Once we have our eggs scrambled, let's put together our sandwich. Step number 1, spread peanut butter on your bread. Now, you can use whatever kind of peanut butter you like, or in my case, what I had, which is also what I like, extra chunky peanut butter. Next, you want to add honey on top of the peanut butter. Okay, a little unusual, but not that outlandish so far. I mean, you put jelly, that's sweet, right? Next, you're going to sprinkle red pepper flakes onto your sandwich. It only gets weirder, folks. Next, we're going to add our scrambled egg to our peanut butter, honey, and red pepper flakes. Trust me, it's worth it. And last but not least, you want to add your bacon bits. Now, in Barry's video, and I think in Jaden's grandmother's original recipe, it called for imitation bacon bits. I don't have imitation bacon bits. I've just got bacon pieces, so that's what I'm going to use. One last thing I will do is spread some peanut butter on your top slice of bread just to hold the bacon bits still. And that's all. Now, as Barry says in his channel, let's give Jaden's grandmother's sandwich a go. Like Barry, I was shocked at how good it tastes. And not just, it's not that bad. It's really good. And that is how you make Jaden's grandmother's sandwich. I hope you will give it a try. It is certainly unique, but I think you'll like it. If you do try it, let us know how it goes in the comments. Also, please consider following Barry on TikTok at Sandwiches of History. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Just a Cowboy's Enemy. Just a Cowboy's Enemy is the story of Cormac Henderson and Brooklyn Lepley, who you might gather from the title are not friends. In fact, for more than a decade, they have been quite antagonistic towards each other. That changes rapidly in a big way one day when Cormac receives a call from his friend and college roommate who is dying of cancer and is not only terminally ill but has a very short time to live. And he asks Cormac for an enormous favor. Because he remembers Cormac and his character and his integrity, he wants Cormac to co-parent and raise his 7-year-old daughter. He explains that he and his wife, who passed a couple of years prior in an auto accident, have no surviving family who are capable of raising the little girl. And he wants her to be in good hands and can think of no better person to raise her than Cormac. Cormac agrees, of course, understanding what a precious gift this is, that his friend would trust his child to him. He agrees to co-parent with this unnamed partner. Well, later that day, Brooklyn receives a call from the same man. It turns out his late wife had similar feelings about Brooklyn, who was her college roommate and friend, and remembers what a fine person, a fine, upstanding person with character and integrity that Brooklyn was, and asks if Brooklyn would co-parent and raise his daughter, their daughter. Of course, she agrees for the same reasons. neither one of them knowing who their co-parent is. The scene, the preview reading that we're going to do here, takes place when both of them receive a letter from the law firm of Cormac's now deceased friend, explaining the details of what's going to happen. Both of them are pretty overwhelmed, seeing as they're not parents, and it's just suddenly become very, very real upon receiving those letters that they're about to be. So they each independently decide to go seek some advice, some wise counsel, as it were. And the wisest people they can think of are the ladies at the Sweetwater Community Center, Miss April, Miss June, and Miss Helen, who we've met before. So please enjoy this little live preview reading of Just a Cowboy's Enemy, then come back this Friday for the full release here on Say with Jay. Cormac pushed open the door to the community center and walked in. Honest to goodness, he almost turned around and walked right back out. Of all the crazy things to have happen, having Brooklyn already standing in front of Miss April when he walked in was a nasty trick of the universe. He halted that thought as soon as it came to him. He didn't believe in the universe, nor did he believe in it playing nasty tricks. He believed in God, and God orchestrated things for his good, even if he didn't understand them. Something nagged at the back of his consciousness, some nebulous idea that maybe he was running into Brooklyn because God was orchestrating it. The thought wavered and then evaporated like mist on a morning breeze. Maybe it settled something in his soul, though, and a little bit of the antagonism that he always felt toward her dissipated. After all, he'd been rude to her at the post office, very rude. And while there was a part of him that felt justified for his rudeness, there was a bigger part of him that felt bad. Not bad enough to apologize in front of people, but bad enough that he knew he should. "Cormac, come on in," Miss April said, peering around Brooklyn, who had jerked, then whipped her head to look behind her at the mention of his name. He couldn't help it. He might feel bad, but he still smirked at her. He was in the process of shoving the letter in his back pocket when he saw her holding a very similar letter in her hand. It had the green line across the top that said it had been a registered letter, and he remembered that she had been at the post office too. Miss June, sitting to the right of Miss April, put her things aside. "You seem to have a registered letter as well. Interesting. Today must be the day for them," she said in her easy, calm voice. Miss June seemed to be one of the most level-headed, or maybe emotionally level people that he knew. He couldn't recall ever seeing her upset, not extremely sad, angry, or happy. She just always seemed to be very content, never getting anxious, and in some part of his brain, he admired that. Or maybe leaned into it, feeling like she was the kind of person someone could depend on in an emergency because she would keep a level head. Then, what she said hit him. His fingers tightened around the letter in his hand, crinkling the paper. He was sharing custody of the child he didn't even know with a nameless person. Could it really be his arch enemy? Okay, maybe that was a little dramatic. Brooklyn was not exactly his arch enemy. He didn't hate her, although he felt like she probably hated him. They definitely had history, and he couldn't see them ever being anything more than casual acquaintances, definitely not friends. Enemies would be a better word to use to describe their relationship with each other, far better than friends. Brooklyn, whose face registered shock at seeing him, continued to stare at him, a small gasp escaping her as her hand, holding her letter, flew to her throat, like she was trying to protect herself. It bothered him, her look of abject horror. Even if that's the way he felt, it was still insulting for her to look at him and act like he was the absolute worst person in the world for her to get stuck with. That was why his smirk grew wider. God wouldn't do that to me, he said, with what he hoped was a confident tone, because he was anything but confident. He was very much afraid that God indeed would do that to him, and probably it was exactly what he needed because of the attitude he currently fought. No, you mean God wouldn't do that to me? Brooklyn's voice was low, horror-filled, the same way it might be when talking to a friend about a meteor heading right toward them, low and soft and careful, and full of every terrible emotion, knowing the end was imminent. She made a telling statement. From her reaction, he deduced that his inference was correct, and she was indeed the person he would be sharing custody with. Maybe you should try to get along with her? He hated that voice, hated what it said, hated that it was right. He wanted to throw the letter down, say there wasn't a chance in hell that he would work with her, and walk back out. Maybe God thinks you're acting like a baby and you need to grow up. Again, the voice was correct. He knew it. But that didn't always mean that his actions fell in line with what he knew he should do. Cormac, do you have a letter stating that you are going to be getting custody of a child tomorrow? Miss April asked, her voice reasonable, calm. He needed the calm, because his insides were flipping out. The idea of being a father had been scary to begin with. But not only was he going to have to be a father, but now he was somehow going to have to figure out a way to get along with the one woman whom he had not been able to get along with in his life before.
Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.